Good afternoon. My name is Chloe Guzman, and today I will be analyzing Roxanne Gay's chapter in American Like Me, written by America Ferrera. To start off with some background information, Roxanne Gay is of Haitian descent and wrote the following books as shown below. Something very popular that is of common knowledge to many people is The World of Wakanda, which Roxanne is in fact the author of. She is also a recipient of the Guggenheim Fellowship Award in 2018. Roxanne's main argument throughout the text is how boundaries are often an unknown concept when it comes to the love within family. To the right is a photo of Roxanne and her mother, Nicole. To give a summary of what Roxanne's chapter was about, she essentially illustrates what her life with quote-unquote trespass boundaries is with her parents, yet continues to seem eternally grateful for the sacrifices they made to give her the life she has, and she comes to terms with their way of loving, and she learns to love the same way they do. In her opening paragraph, Roxanne starts off by stating her own personal belief in boundaries that lie within her family. Yet a couple sentences down, she rebuttals her first statement that boundaries do exist, although they can be heavily ignored. At the end of the paragraph, Roxanne restates her own belief on boundaries and continues to state while yes, they do exist, they cease to be ignored in the best intention in family. Throughout the paragraph, Roxanne gives a sense of annoyance with her family when it comes to her mother completely brushing off the idea of boundaries existing, as she states, quote unquote, I smiled and bit my tongue and understood that boundaries do exist no matter how willfully some people try to ignore them. In the second and third paragraphs, Roxanne speaks about her identity at home with her Haitian family and her life outside of home with her American friends. She begins her paragraph by acknowledging her way of living at home and out of school. She then states, and I quote, I knew nothing about boundaries or other such American things. And italicizes American to show the emphasis on how the American ways of life were so different from her way of life. Roxanne continues to use a parallel statement of how her American classmates could not understand her way of life at home and how her parents could not understand Roxanne's American friends' way of life at home. She then states an example of the parallel statement by stating that closed doors were a no-no in her household because by doing so, they were essentially trying to shut out their parents from their lives, when that is the complete opposite of what her parents wanted to do. Going into the fourth paragraph, Roxanne shows its shift in tone. From once being fully annoyed at her family for crossing the boundaries, she is now grown and matured and realizes her parents' way of loving was a way that she now as an adult carries with herself. She uses examples of some expectations her parents had on both her and her siblings, and how they give her family a sense of traditional tone, which appeals to readers because every family essentially has those traditional expectations from their own. She also makes the remark of how the only thing that separates her family is their skin. For example, how they may be both separate people, they may share the same wrinkles or even beauty marks due to their genetics. In paragraph 5, Roxanne starts off with a sense of disbelief that someone can love her as much as her parents do. She acknowledges her parents' undying love through all the time she would push them away and used an anaphora by repeating the words, they loved me through, to emphasize the things that she had put them through and how they still stuck around throughout all of that. She further then chronically goes about her years and how along the way her parents have become her friends. She talks about how they speak daily through FaceTime and how they must quote unquote see her. She italicizes the word see to emphasize the importance of to her parents of them being able to see her. She then goes into a statement illustrating how although you may physically leave home, the connection to your home and family never dies out. Continuing into paragraphs 6 and 7, Roxanne uses personal anecdotes of a time where her parents did not give her privacy and crossed her personal boundaries. She established a sense of pathos appeal to the readers by talking about how her parents tried to control her social media, which is something that no one likes. She then smoothens this tone of annoyance she feels of her parents pestering her social media by stating how her mom and dad are her biggest supporters and how her family is like her quote-unquote mini army. Her family's way of loving may be overbearing at times, but they are her biggest support group. Roxanne continues to repeat how her family's way of loving is justified although at times it can annoy her. In Roxanne's concluding paragraph, she comes to terms with the reason behind her family's unrestless and sometimes overwhelming love. She acknowledges the hardships they once went through to get where they are today, and uses anaphoras and states that although they had nothing, they had one another, and that is all they needed to lead a happy and successful life. She mentioned how her family had crossed so many borders that at times were not welcoming, and she came to realize that as a family, they could not imagine having those inhospitable borders between one another. And that is why they love as hard, fiercely, and wildly as they do. Thank you.